Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience. South Dakota Senate will come to order. Leading the Pledge of Allegiance today is Haley Kettler. She's from Pierre, and I'll be providing the prayer today due to some absences. And so if you would all please rise on three. Let us pray. Loving and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we ask for your wisdom today and your guidance and courage and strength. Please be with us, senators, and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all of those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Please, O Lord, give us insight to lead with integrity and that our decisions reflect what is right and good, and help us to make decisions that strive for the good of all and guard us from blind self-interest. And finally, dear Lord, grant us the humility to always seek your will in all that we do and say. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Senator Bradford, Brown, Buell, O'Donnell, Kamak, Kurd, Ewing, Fegan, Frerichs, Greenfield, Hager, Haverly, Heineman, Heinert, Holeen, Hunoff, Jensen, Monroe, Norstrup, Olson, Amdahl, Otten, Parsley, Peters, Peterson, Rampelberg, Rush, Shorma, Sohold, Solano, Sutton, Tiedemann, Teason, Van Gerpen, Valley, and White. Quorum present, Mr. President.
Thank you. Approval of the journal.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 18th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move the adoption of the report. Senator Kamak, Chair.
All those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. We'll pause right now. I'd like to welcome all of you who are physically here at the State Senate, and also those who are watching on live stream video. And we're very grateful to our partners at South Dakota Public Broadcasting for their assistance technically and production-wise for allowing the live stream to occur. We have a number of people to introduce today. Let me give you an explanation, though. We're missing a few people here on the floor that are part of our Appropriations Committee. Appropriations is like a finance committee, and that finance committee is meeting right now, making action and determinations on what the revenue numbers look like for our current fiscal year, which ends in June 30th, and then a new fiscal year. And so we're always dealing with the budget in the last number of weeks, and so they've moved this time frame up earlier, and you'll see them come in prior to us voting on various bills. So that is the explanation for those hardworking committee members as well. The Senate would also like to recognize and thank the Doctor of the Day. Dr. Henderson is from Winter, and she's been here taking care of us over the last couple of years. And Dr. Henderson represents not only herself, but other doctors every day that come here to take care of us, not only free of charge, but also taking time out of her schedule and her partners assisting with her patient load back in Winter. She is a family medicine doctor at the Winter Regional Clinic, and she's been there for quite a while taking care of the regional needs of Winter, and she provides medical care also at the federally qualified rural health centers in Mission and White River. She received her degree at the University of South Dakota School of Medicine and did her family practice residency at the Siouxland Foundation in Sioux City, and obviously a very active member of the South Dakota Medical Association and a leader in the association I know in teaching. So thank you very much. And I understand on behalf of Senator Jim Peterson, we have a Waverly South Shore senior government class, right? Where are you at? Right back here. And Mr. Meyer is your teacher, is that correct? Thank you, sir, very much for bringing them here and learning about civics. The world is, as I say many times, the world's run by those folks who show up. So thank you for showing up. Congratulations for being here. And where is Buell O'Donnell? She's gone at that. Okay. Is Katie Eisenbraun up here? I can't see. Is it Katie behind me? Okay. Thank you, Katie. Katie is Ms. Wheelchair of South Dakota. Christy. I'm sorry. I know a Katie Eisenbraun. Christy Eisenbraun, Ms. Wheelchair of South Dakota. Congratulations. Woo! And today is Arts Day. Put the camera down, Bondi. Goodness gracious. I mean, I don't like having my photo taken. Hey, Bondi, is that a tie, a gift from your brother or what? Really? It looks like, yeah. Brian Biondi is our Sergeant at Arms brother. Who's younger? So it does look like that tie was a gift. Anyway, many friends. Arts Day here every 2 years. Last year we had the big to-do, and understand you had a great reception downstairs and well received. But having been privileged to be involved in the arts and receiving your national award, it's very humbling for all of us to recognize all your hard work in all area of arts therapy to the work that Dale Lamphere is doing, to all the students. So I understand Dale is here today. Yeah, so he's on the other side, or is he up here? Okay, so we'll especially have the youth meet him when he comes over, but we are very, very grateful for all you do for the arts, not only for our daily lives, but encouraging it in our legislation. And we're putting up some great art in the State Veterans Home as a result of legislation that you worked on years ago. And it really brings us to alive in all media. So thank you. South Dakotans for the Arts Council. Okay, Bondi, you owe me, buddy. You got it. Okay. Here's Senator Buell O'Donnell. Is Jean here right now? Jean? Oh, okay, good. Up here we have Planned Parenthood. South Dakota Manager of Advocacy and Development is Jean Baer. And on behalf of Buell O'Donnell, welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Any other personal privileges that I've missed? Oh, good, good.
And so if they could just stand up.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. The student artists, would you please stand? Thank you, if you're able. Thank you for your gifts and brightening our day, and thank you for letting me know, and I appreciate that. We also have members from Teen Pact that are over here. They're very humble. They didn't want to be introduced, so I will introduce them. They're actually meeting here yesterday and today, a great organization that teaches youth not only to get involved, but be critical thinkers. And if you've not met these young men and women, please do, because it'll be a joy of your life. And I've really appreciated the last few years meeting with all of you. So Teen Pact representatives, please stand. Senator Valley is not wearing a bow tie, but he loves bow ties, so you're his new best friend. So that's excellent. Okay, if there aren't any more personal privileges, thank you for stopping by. For those who need to leave, but otherwise we're going to get into some business. Preliminarily, we just do some housekeeping, we call it. A lot of it's done orally because we didn't have computers when we first started as a state, obviously. And so people would keep track of bills and all the messages and information up there with a pencil or a pen and paper. We still must abide by those rules, and so we've got it all computerized. We don't want to look disrespectful, but we're not really paying attention, even though we love our secretary. Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Transportation reports that it has had under consideration Senate Bills 113 and 122 and recommends deferring to the 41st Legislative Day. Senator Valley, Chair. Committee on Taxation reports that it has had under consideration House Bill 1113 and recommends due pass to be placed on the consent calendar. Senator Monroe, Chair. Committee on Local Government reports that it has had under consideration House Bills 1087 and 1089 and recommend due pass consent calendar. Senator Ewing, Chair, and the Committee on State Affairs reports that it has had under consideration Senate Bill 94 and recommends deferring to the 41st Legislative Day. Senator Kamak, Chair.
So what just happened there, especially for our government students, is our secretary was just reading what happened to bills in the committee, even though it shows up right immediately on our computer now. What happened to various bills as people were keeping track of them. And obviously, a number of those were reported out or were defeated. Our next order of business is messages, please.
Mr. President, I have the honor to transmit herewith House Bill 1051, 1091, 1112, 1125, 1138, and 1183, which have passed the House and your favorable consideration is requested. And I have the honor to transmit HCR 1011, which has been adopted by the House and your concurrence is respectfully requested. Arlene Kvislin, Chief Clerk.
Motions and resolutions, please.
Senator Rampelberg moves that the Senate do concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 20.
Before I call on you, Senator Rampelberg, we have Senate Bill 20. It passed the Senate, and the House then received the bill, and they made an amendment. They sent it back here, and this is for consideration of whether or not we agree with their amendment. And Senator Rampelberg is saying, yes, we should agree, and that's what his motion is. Thank you for your patience, and good afternoon. Senator Rampelberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Senate Bill 20 is about 11 pages long. It's a fairly comprehensive bill, but it really changes the title from chemical dependency to addiction counseling. And what happened is they missed that particular change in one of the paragraphs toward the end of the bill. So if you're looking at the bill, you might look to page 11, and you'll see where they had crossed out the chemical dependency and put in the addiction counselor. And that's what has happened throughout the bill. This is one paragraph that missed it. So the House caught it. We missed it. I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senator Rampelberg's motion to concur. These are, just to refresh us, this is the first concurrence or request for concurrence you've received. It is final action, so it takes the characteristic of whatever the underlying bill is, unless it modified its majority or two-thirds ruling. It's obviously a majority ruling. So it'll be a roll call vote, of course. The question before the Senate is Senator Rampelberg's motion that the Senate do concur in House amendment to Senate Bill 20. Those in favor of concurrence will vote aye. Those opposed to concurrence, nay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bradford? Aye. Brown? Aye. Buell O'Donnell? Aye. Kamak?
Aye.
Hurd is excused. Ewing?
Aye.
Fagan?
Aye.
Frerichs?
Aye.
Greenfield? Aye. Hager? Aye. Haverly? Aye. Heineman? Aye. Heinert? Aye. Holeen is excused. Hunoff? Aye. Jensen? Aye. Monroe? Aye. Norstrup? Olson? Aye. Amdahl? Aye. Otten? Aye. Parsley? Aye. Peters? Aye. Peterson? Aye. Rampelberg? Aye. Rush? Aye. Shorma? Aye. Soholt? Aye. Solano? Aye. Sutton? Aye. Tiedemann? Aye. Teason? Aye. Van Gerpen? Valley? Aye. White? Aye. Mr. President, there are 32 yeas, 3 excused.
Thank you. The question of Senator Rampelberg's motion that the Senate do concur to House amendments to Senate Bill 20, having received a majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed, and the amendments are so concurred in. Before we proceed, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, it gives me an immense amount of personal pleasure to introduce to me, and I think the state of South Dakota, a very humble man, but in my estimation, a true living legend. Dale Lamphere, would you please stand? Mr. Lamphere actually has so many gifts from God in the artistic world to make it come alive. His gifts to us when we were centennial, for our centennial downstairs, if you go through, especially kids, if you go and look at those beautiful sculptures, they are his work with great stories. And if you have the opportunity ever to talk with him, that is a major mark on our state for eons. He's currently commissioned that by this time next year, we'll have the beautiful statue Dignity up in place, up above the Missouri River near Chamberlain, Oklahoma. And it is a great honor to have you not only here, Mr. Lamphere, but to be a South Dakotan and to give us all your gifts. Ladies and gentlemen, Dale Lamphere. Thank you for being here, and we will proceed.
House Concurrent Resolution 1008, a concurrent resolution urging Congress to support and to ask the United States Secretary of State to approve the Keystone XL pipeline project. Senator Jensen moves that the Senate do concur in HCR 1008 as found on page 280 of the House Journal.
Is there a second? Comments on that motion? Good afternoon, Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. That a presidential administration can block a private commercial act speaks to problems well beyond the delay of a pipeline. And this should concern those who care about the growth that is always the result of economic freedom. The Keystone XL pipeline is projected to create approximately 9,000 well-paying jobs for Americans. In Montana, we're looking at 4,000 jobs. In Nebraska, approximately 2,700 jobs. And in our own state, approximately 3,500 jobs. Keystone XL in South Dakota will mean well over $100 million in earnings for laborers working on the pipeline in the state. Taxes paid by TransCanada means a boost for local communities. We are proud of the investments we made in the form of taxes and other contributions to help communities, big and small. The taxes we pay help communities afford infrastructure improvements such as roads, bridges, schools, and local programs. According to the U.S. State Department final supplemental impact statement, 7 out of 9 counties in South Dakota will see their property tax base increase by more than 10%. In some counties, those increases would be close to 100% or higher. The estimated property tax from the proposed project in the first full year of operations as a percent of actual property tax revenue in 2010 would range from less than 0.1% in Pennington County, South Dakota, to 145% in Harding County, South Dakota. Property tax revenue expected to be created by Keystone XL in each state. Montana, approximately $67 million. Nebraska, approximately $20 million. And in South Dakota, approximately $23 million. Concerning the environmental aspect of this, unless we forget, oil is of the earth. So it's silly to act as though it's harmful to it. Even an investor, Warren Buffett, has said he would approve the Keystone Pipeline project. He thinks that failure to permit and continue with the pipeline is doing damage to our relationship with Canada, the nation's largest trading partner. And this is just another example of the Obama administration's inability to acknowledge the facts about the Keystone Pipeline. It is economically and environmentally sound. So I would encourage you to support this House Concurrent Resolution 1008. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Heiner. Good afternoon, sir.
Mitakepi, Mr. President.
Pilama.
My fellow senators, I urge you to oppose this resolution for a number of reasons. I'm going to start with, first off, it's unnecessary. The State Department has already ruled. The President has already spoken. It will not be built under his watch. We know that. That is fact. Okay? I don't think anybody can argue that. That federal permit has been denied. That decision is final. The second reason to not approve this resolution is just the facts within the resolution itself. It says 120,000 jobs. The previous speaker spoke of 9,000. What he didn't tell you is those are 9,000 temporary jobs, clear across the country. Okay? 34 jobs clear across the country are permanent, and none of those are permanently in South Dakota. So really, we're going to support a foreign corporation to come through our land, not provide any jobs for our people, potentially harm what land and what water we have, but I'll talk about that in a second. The tar sands that will flow through this pipeline, TransCanada does not pay one single dime to the Petroleum Cleanup Fund. You know why? because tar sands are not considered petroleum. It is about the dirtiest substance on earth. And it's going to go down to the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to get refined, and then it's going to go to China. We are not using this product domestically. We can't use this product domestically. It talks, in the resolution itself, it talks about lowering gas prices. I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty nice when I can go fill up my pickup right now without the Keystone Pipeline for $60. Gas prices are as low as they've been in a decade. And none of that is coming out of Canada. So just on the factual basis alone, this resolution doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we want to say, yeah, we know it's not factual, but we want you to approve it anyway, I don't think that's what we're about. I surely take you at your word when you say something. Why wouldn't the government expect the same from us? Now on the personal side. You guys know I'm a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. I wear that proudly. Our tribe has had a spirit camp set up since this fight really began, with people praying, people donating, meetings being held, and it's right on the edge of where this pipeline would come from. And it goes right to the border of our reservation. Actually, TransCanada changed their route because they knew they couldn't come across the reservation. There has been no tribal consultation, either by TransCanada or by the South Dakota PUC, which is required by federal law. To make it even more personal, when I turn on the hydrant at my house, that is the Oglala Aquifer. That is the purest, cleanest, best water in the entire nation. You have all met my son Harold. He loves to come sit on the floor with me. He drinks that water. He plays in that water. My animals drink that water. All of my neighbors drink that water. All of their animals drink that water. That's what I'm here to protect. I don't care what a foreign corporation wants to do. But if they are going to put my life, my child's life, my operation in danger, I am going to say something about it. We hear lots of times, we got to stand up for local property owners. Property rights is key. Do you know that TransCanada has perpetual easements? With their latest, if they ever get a presidential permit, with their latest round at the PUC and their permission, all of those easements that they've taken through eminent domain, and we heard from ranchers yesterday, those are property of TransCanada. There's nothing they can do about it. I ask you, if you support local property rights, if you support ranchers, if you support making sure that children do not have to swim in oil, because that can happen, then I urge you to oppose this resolution. If not for that reason, then do it because it's just not factual. So I appreciate you listening to me. Hohecha tulo.
Pilameo. Senator Ramdahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we're in fellow senators, we're in an international market here. We, and by the previous speaker from Burl, Buffalo, Jones, Lyman, Millette, and Todd, he's assuming that growth in the oil industry is going to stay static. That's not going to happen. we're going to run into a shortage of energy down the road. We're behind the curve already. I was listening to Jack Jones with the American Petroleum Institute about all the private investment money that would go into this. And you look at all the jobs this thing would create, regardless of temporary or permanent, but there still will be permanent jobs in this. These are good jobs. Also, the EPA looked at this thing, studied it indefinitely, and they said there's nothing wrong with the thing. So I don't know where these phony concerns are over this issue. And with that, I'd encourage my fellow senators to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bradford, good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I will not repeat what the good senator from my adjacent reservation spoke, but I must rise in support of my tribe, the Oglala Lakotas. We marched many, many miles and stood on the face of the capital of this good state and posted our resistance to the XL pipeline. It was done in the fact of concern for our water, mainly. And there is a concern. You don't realize that in our belief, water is everything. And if you really think about it, without water, we're nothing. And the protection of that water is so important. And honestly, I heard that, all about the big things about this pipeline, and I don't really feel it's going to make a lot more value to Canada and to China than it is to the United States. I just feel that it's something that if that is so desperately needed, I'm sure China would build a railroad and haul it on a railroad car or truck it. So my good friend, we could build some new roads and get those taxes. But I also urge you to resist this.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Frerichs. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Question for the sponsor of the resolution.
Yeah, the movement, please state your question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, just curious, will this Trans-Canada pipeline pay into the federal oil spill liability excise tax? I think the numbers are 26 USC and then it's 4611. Curious if they would pay into that federal excise tax for oil spill liability. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Jensen, do you care to answer the question, sir? He's declining, Senator Frerichs, but you have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. President. And, out of respect for the land that we have and, and in respect to those corporations that do pay into this federal excise tax for oil spill, I would urge concern because, as is evidenced with the no response, that is the case. TransCanada with Keystone 1 does not pay into this federal excise tax, whereas there's been talk about a new pipeline coming through South Dakota that is not TransCanada, and to my knowledge, they would pay into that federal excise tax. So there's a difference, and there's a difference with TransCanada compared to other companies. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Frerichs. Further remarks? Does anybody, Senator Jensen, do you care for rebuttal? Okay, thank you very much. Hearing no further remarks then, the question before the Senate is Senator Jensen's motion that the Senate do concur in HCR 1008. Those in favor of concurring will vote aye. Those opposed to concurring will vote nay. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Bradford? Brown? Buell O'Donnell? Kamak? Curd is excused. Ewing? Fegan? Frerichs? Greenfield? Hager? Haverly? Haverly? Heineman? Heinert? Holeen is excused. Hunoff? Jensen? Monroe? Norstrup? Olson? Amdahl? Otten? Parsley? Peters? Peterson? Rampelberg? Rush? Shorma? Soholt? Solano? Sutton? Tiedemann? Peason? Van Gerpen? Valley? White? Mr. President, there are 23 yeas, 9 nays, and 3 excused.
Senator Jensen's motion that the Senate do concur in HCR 1008, having received a majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed, and HCR 1008 is so concurred in. Senator Sutton.
Personal privilege.
Granted, sir.
Well, I would ask the body to join me in welcoming my beautiful wife behind me. I think she's up there. I just can't say enough about the support that she's given to me at my already 6 years here. We've had quite a journey together, and our journey is going to get more interesting as she is expecting in April with our first child. So. And her name, by the way, is Kelsey.
That's always great to have you here, Kelsey, and thank you. Thank you for your support. Say, Senator Sutton, is your father-in-law here today, too?
I can't see back up there. Is he there? Oh, he's getting ready with the big, important South Dakota Bankers deal tonight, so...
Well, at least I wish to go on record. I have a recommendation for you that he needs to start that college fund for the grandchild right now. How about that? Okay. When we talk to him tonight, we'll put the arm on him. So that's great. Welcome.
House Concurrent Resolution 1011, a concurrent resolution opposing the recent actions of the EPA and the President with regards to the waters of the United States federal rule and applauding the South Dakota congressional delegates who oppose such actions.
Referral to committee has been waived and will be placed on tomorrow's calendar. Thank you.
Senator Brown moves that Senate Bill 107 and House Bill 1098 be deferred until Thursday, February 11th, the 20th legislative day.
All those in favor of deferral signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Senator Brown moves that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 1 p.m. on Thursday, February 11th, the 20th legislative day.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now we're on to consideration of committee reports, please.
Senator Brown moves that the reports of the Standing Committee on Education on Senate Bill 159 is found on page 257 of the Senate Journal, and the Joint Committee on Appropriations on Senate Bill 120 is found on page 257 of the Senate Journal be adopted.
All those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye, please. Please. Opposed? Carried. We're on to next order of business is first reading of House bills. Only have a couple. These bills need to be read in open session for the reasons I explained so that people in the past would keep track of what the titles are, what numbers they are, and what committees they're assigned to. And so we'll proceed with that orally. Again, these are already in the computer. Please proceed.
House Bill number 1051, an act to prohibit the use of certain automated sales suppression devices and to provide penalties for their use. 1091, an act to establish certain requirements regarding insurance for vehicles used to provide rides for a transportation network company and to exempt vehicles used to provide these rides from certain commercial licensing requirements. 1112, an act to establish certain procedures regarding a transgender policy for the purposes of participation in high school activities and to declare void any present transgender policy of any association recognized under Chapter 13-36. House Bill 1125, an act to limit the ability of a person to obtain a concealed pistol permit related to the restoration of civil rights and to declare an emergency. House Bill 1138, an act to revise provisions related to the enhanced permit to carry a concealed pistol. And finally, House Bill 1183, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the jurisdiction of magistrate courts to issue protection orders.
Education shall hear House Bill 1112, Judiciary 1125, 1138, and 1183, Taxation 1051, and Transportation 1091. Judiciary, way to go. You win again. Consent calendar. The consent calendar, ladies and gentlemen, is comprised of bills that came out of committee unanimously and are not subject to debate. It's for efficiency purposes. But any of these bills could be removed and debated tomorrow. None of those today that I know of. And again, it's so that we can move on to more discussable bills and less controversial bills. So please proceed. Consent calendar.
Senate Bill 66, an act to permit the issuance of special license plates to parents of certain individuals. Senate Bill 104, an act to set the time period for when an agency may promulgate rules. Senate Bill 138, an act to authorize the construction of a nursing home facility in Rosebud, South Dakota. House Bill 1011, an act to repeal certain obsolete and unnecessary statutes concerning game preserves and refuges. And finally, House Bill 1031, an act to revise certain provisions pertaining to weights and measures.
Senate Bill 66, 104, 138, House Bill 1011 and 1031, having received a second reading, are up for consideration and final passage. Senators, any questions on any of these bills? Okay, hearing none, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 66, 104, and 134, and House Bills 1011 and 1031. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bradford. Brown. Buell O'Donnell. Kamak. Kurd, excuse. Ewing. Fegan. Frerichs. Greenfield. Hager. Haverly. Heineman. Heinert. Holeen, excused. Hunoff. Jensen. Monroe. Norstrup. Olson. Amdahl. Otten. Parsley. Peters. Peterson. Rampelberg. Rush. Shorma. Soholt. Solano. Sutton. Tiedemann. Teason. Van Gerpen. Valley. White. Rampelberg. Mr. President, there are 32 yeas, 3 excused.
Thank you. Senate Bill 66, 104, 134, and House Bill 1011 and 1031, having received a majority vote of the members elect, are all hereby declared passed. Any title questions? Titles approved then. We'll move on to debate calendar, please.
Senate Bill 130, an act to require the processing of sexual assault exam kits.
Senate Bill 130, having received a second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Good afternoon again, Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. We've all heard of sexual assault kits being stored untested for years on end. What this bill does is it provides justice for victims of sexual assault in a more timely manner. It also serves to get the perpetrators off the street quicker so they can no longer offend. On a personal note, my sister was raped by 2 guys just before her 16th birthday. She was again brutally raped in her early 40s. They didn't have DNA testing back then, and to the best of my knowledge, her rapists have never been held accountable. In talking with our Attorney General, he told me that if we went with a 90-day window on testing, he would not have to hire another FTE, full-time employee. Short of that, he would. So I would encourage you to support this Senate Bill 130, and I believe there is an amendment on the floor.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rush, good afternoon. I see you have an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have an amendment, 130RB, and a friendly amendment that Senator Jensen the good senator from Rapid City is indicating that he's not objecting to.
Excuse me, sir, do you move it at this time?
I do move it at this time.
Comments on the motion to amend, and you may speak to the bill as well. Thanks.
Okay. I just want to speak to the amendment. We didn't want to get into any concerns about the fact of if one of these kits was not tested till the 91st day, that somebody could raise that as a defense to the action. So that's the only purpose of the amendment.
Thank you, sir. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Rush's motion marked 130, Romeo Bravo. I'm sorry, Senator Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a point of clarification. I want to make sure that the amendment I have on my desk is the same one that's presented before you with the word new stricken.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for the clarification. It's Romeo Bravo for the record, and there's a handwritten line through the word new. I would assume that was from you, Senator Rush. So it would read, nothing in this section may be construed as creating a defense for a defendant in any sexual assault case. That's how it would be engrossed if you agree. Okay, thank you for the clarification request. All those in favor of the motion to amend 130 RB signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. 130 is so amended. Further remarks on Senate Bill 130 as amended. Senator Buell O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an issue that I think is very important, and I do have some questions or concerns, I guess, that I have about this. In one of my past lives, I was a volunteer. I was a rape crisis volunteer for our service agency in town. So a couple nights a month, I would be on call and would respond when victims turned up at the ER having been assaulted. And I was there to serve as their advocate and to help them understand the process, to help answer their questions on what would happen from there, on evidence collection, on reporting, and all of that. And it was my number one concern to make sure that victims understood that they could choose to have evidence collected and choose whether to submit it at a later date or not. Lots of victims come into a situation like that not knowing anything. I mean, no one studies up on these kind of situations until they need to. And I think the idea that folks would feel compelled to submit a report to law enforcement or submit evidence, I think would scare away a lot of victims from presenting themselves at the emergency room after having been assaulted. I think a lot of folks come in just wanting to make sure that they're okay and get checked out. But I know a lot of victims that I've spoken with have concerns about not wanting to report to law enforcement. They may change their mind after some time, and that's great. But my concern is that this bill has nothing to do with victim consent. It says that the evidence turns over to law enforcement and goes from there. And I really pause at that and want to make sure that we're leaving the choice ultimately in victims' hands. I do know that there's another proposal that relates to this particular issue that is still in play in this session, so that one I know specifically does relate to victim consent, and that's really where I'm coming at with this. So I just wanted to raise that particular concern, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to thank the good senator for the amendment, because there was the good senator from Todd Millett and all the other counties and myself voted against this bill, but with the amendment, we now be able to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further remarks, Senator Rush.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the body. In order to maybe obviate some of the good senator from Sioux Falls' concerns, this bill only goes to the time frame once it's received in the Attorney General's office. that once it's received in the Attorney General's office, then they have to process it within that time. It doesn't impose any kind of an obligation about the local department that collected it and when they have to. Now, the other bill that you referred to may impose those kind of obligations, but this only goes to the Attorney General's office.
Thank you very much. Further remarks? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 130 as amended. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bradford? Brown? Buell O'Donnell? Kamak? Kurd excused. Ewing? Fegan? Frerichs? Greenfield? Hager? Haverly? Heineman? Heinert? Holeen, excused. Hunoff? Jensen? Monroe? Norstrup? Olson? Amdahl? Otten? Parsley? Peters? Peterson? Rampelberg? Rush? Shorma? Soholt? Solano? Sutton? Tiedemann? Teason? Van Gerpen? Valley? White? Mr. President, there are 33 yeas, 2 excused.
Thank you. Senate Bill 130 as amended, having received a majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any title questions? Title's approved. Second reading of House bills, please.
House Bill 1084, an act to define when concurrent employment may be used to calculate earnings in workers' compensation cases.
House Bill 1084, having received a second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Good afternoon, Senator Sharma.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Request just a little bit of leeway on describing this bill.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill came out of a decision, as a result of a decision from Supreme Court whereby some unintended consequences were created. My good representative friend from Union and Southern Lincoln County stood up and said, I think we can get the industry leaders together to fix this for the benefit of the employees' rights and clarify things for the business community. We held this hearing, and we had 11 proponents speak of the phenomenal job that was done by the great senator by the representative over in Union and Lincoln County, and we had 0 opponents. This, I can get into a little bit of a discussion about what this does. The decision aggregated wages when an employee gets injured who happens to have multiple places of employment. The unintended consequences was that the aggregation of those wages would need then to be paid on the unemployment compensation side from each of those employers and their insurance companies. Made it extremely difficult and complex. With the guidance of others in the industry that were impacted by that result, they agreed that we should still aggregate wages. An employee gets injured at one job, not at the other, but that person's total compensation for anything that they're active in at the time would be reimbursed under workers' comp rules. Another little challenge with that is that multiple employers, there's a confidentiality issue. This allows the employer insurance company from where the employee got injured to request the information about that employee's employment and earnings, and that there would be a fee of $15 paid to the supplying employer for that information. Now, where does $15 come from? Garnishments are an example of where an employer has to relate that information, and a typical fee for that is $15. I think that pretty well covers that we're talking about an aggregation of wages from multiple jobs so that an employee can be covered under workers' comp correctly in the event of an injury at one location. I ask you for your support of this bill, and I stand by for any and all questions from this wonderful body.
Thank you, Senator Shorman. Further remarks? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1084. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Bradford. Brown. Buell O'Donnell. Kamak. Kurd excused. Ewing. Fegan. Frerichs. Greenfield. Hager. Haverly. Heineman. Heinert. Holeen is excused. Hunoff. Jensen. Monroe. Norstrup. Olson. Amdahl. Otten. Parsley. Peters. Peterson. Rampelberg. Rush. Shorma. Soholt. Solano. Sutton. Tiedemann. Teason. Van Gerpen. Valley. White. Mr. President, there are 33 yeas, 2 excused.
Thank you. House Bill 1084, having received a majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any title questions? Hearing none, the title's approved. I just have a couple of signers here, and then we'll move on to announcements. Constitution requires the President sign in open session bills that have passed both the House and the Senate. I'm signing an act to revise certain provisions concerning campaign finance requirements, 1036. President signing an act to revise certain provisions concerning petitions for initiated constitutional amendments, initiated measures, and candidates. That's 1037. And the President signing an act to revise the procedure for recovery of abandoned mineral rights. That's House Bill 1058. Thank you, Jill. Announcements, please. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have appropriations tomorrow, bill hearings 9 to noon, and then bill hearings next week, Tuesday, 8 to noon.
Thank you.
We're going to continue working.
Great. Senator Kamak.
Senate Ag and Natural Resources, room 412, Thursday, February 11th at 10 a.m. We have 2 bills to consider.
Great. Senator Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our Senate Commerce and Energy will meet tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We'll have 2 bills up, one of which I believe will be disposed of at the request of the prime sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Heiner, are you okay? Senator Soholt.
Senate Education, 7:45 tomorrow morning.
Excellent. Thank you. Senator Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Judiciary at 8 o'clock.
Big day. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay.
Senator Heinert moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
All those in favor of that phenomenal motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.
you.